whatever you thought about, would he invade? Could he invade? What will it look like? We now know what it looks like. It's a full-scale invasion, at least by air right now, but we also have troops on the ground, Russian troops in Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. We have Russian troops in Odessa. They've taken over the port there. That's that's Ukraine's only port.
Putin gives an announcement saying it's going to be limited to the region, the two disputed regions, as they call it. And then literally 10 minutes later, he starts having major engagements. We had Air Force, Navy, Special Operations, Black Hawk helicopters, and now ground troops.
This was not centered around eastern Ukraine. You see that small area?
Despite what Vladimir Putin said.
That's the disputed area that was already held by the separatists, kind of like Crimea. But they actually utilized Crimea and the areas held by the separatists. But they launched attacks all the way through Belarus. So they used Belarus as well to launch attacks. They've got paratroopers in. So there are Russian troops on the ground.
The reports are that even the air defense system of Ukraine has been totally obliterated, so that they cannot even defend themselves.
Communication system, do we know at this point?
Do not know exactly. I do know that the Ukrainian army, they have quit using cell phones completely. They use old landline military radios and telephones in order to not be shut down. They can still communicate.
And Zelensky has imposed martial law.
There was martial law imposed. I mean, he imposed it by a FaceTime video. So he did not have the production capability to address the nation in a normal kind of video message or live message. He was using his phone. A lot of military experts saying the only hope Ukraine has now is you don't engage the Russians right now. You fall back all your troops into their homes, very much guerrilla style. And then when they're sitting there on the streets, you go after them like we've seen our troops have to fight.
But that takes a lot of will of the Ukrainian people.
And Iraq.
This is a high-end, concerted effort to overthrow the regime in Ukraine. I think we've all seen this coming for weeks. We implored our administration to do everything it could to deter, change the calculus for Vladimir Putin, clearly waiting to do the sanctions, failed to do that. But Vladimir Putin has made this choice. It's a war of aggression on his part, and he needs to be made to pay the price for that.
The displaced person aspect of this it also becomes an issue here.
People are pouring out of Ukraine as we speak. Some have found
hundreds of thousands
safe haven, but the roads out of Kyiv are packed. But guess what that does? Opens up the roads into Kyiv for the Russian tanks.
Whoever would try to stop us and further create threats to our country, to our people, should know that Russia's response will be immediate and lead you to such consequences that you have never faced in your history. We are ready for any outcome.
Russians are already threatening cyber attacks on the U.S. electrical grid.
Or anyone else and
banks.
Yeah, and anyone specific. Yeah, banks and electrical grids and any other country that they're saying interferes.
He's going to greenlight, potentially, the attacks on our electrical grid. Now think about that in a time when it's 30 degrees in a lot of places in the country or colder. The cell infrastructure, the internet.
The economic impact, particularly in the short run, will indeed be huge. And so we are seeing forecasts of gas prices going up to $8 per gallon of gas, particularly in California and New Jersey.
It's going to be more expensive to fill up your car. It's going to be more expensive to heat your house. Cost of goods are going to go up, and we're already in an inflation kind of environment. The stock market is almost crashing.
The threat that we don't know, the complete outcome of is how far Putin will go after this. I don't think he will attack another country right off, but you look at the former Balkan states, of Serbia, Kosovo, and Bosnia. You look at the former members of the Soviet Republic that have invoked Article 4 of NATO. They are feeling threatened. Jake, what has happened? The world today is a much more dangerous place in which to live.
Could you see him potentially trying to endanger NATO member states directly that he believes are part of the bigger Russia and Soviet conglomerate?
His calculus will be much like it was this time. I want to get that back. This is an important part of Russian history. This is part of the greater Russian or Soviet empire. What's it going to cost me? What's the risk associated with my continued power, the risk that my regime in Russia falls? If he calculates that he can do this with relative impunity, there's real risk that he will move on and begin to nibble at NATO in the same way he's now consuming all of Ukraine.
NATO countries are at risk. Yes. And if Putin will do a judgment call and he'll say, you know what, you didn't do much with Ukraine. They're not NATO. But these smaller NATO countries, I mean, we have friends who live in Latvia. that they could be next. And those are very small countries.
They are.
They are members of NATO, which would invoke Article 5 if attacked.
Yes.
If NATO is willing to actually go to war with Russia.
They've already implemented Article 4. So Article 4, of course, says that they feel like their territorial sanctity is in dispute or in danger, and that their military could be called upon, and that they're at political risk, which means that the government could be taken over.
This is just the beginning of the conflict. If this gets bloodier and nastier, and if there is some insurgency in Ukraine, and we don't know if there really is one or not, this is going to be something, it's very significant. The only thing comparable to this in modern history was the U.S. invasion of Iraq. It was shock and awe. You go in with heavy air, the troops walk in, the tanks roll in. That's what Putin is following. I think a similar model of take out all the major air structures and then roll in with the troops and the tanks. And basically, at some point, the government is gone.